Welcome everybody, another week. My name is Amaia Perez. I am the online programming director of Recovering from Religion and also your co-host today. And I'm here with Eric Wells, who is the RfR support group director. Thank you, Eric, so much for being here today.
Well, thanks for letting me be here. It's a pleasure being back. I'm like I've said this so many times, and all the regulars are just tired of hearing me say it, but I really enjoy coming to Monday nights. It's something I look forward to. It's so good to see all these familiar faces and quite a few new ones too. So it's really good to be back. I'm very excited to get into this and have this discussion with a returning fantastic expert, and I just love listening to Rebecca. But
Definitely.
We've got to go through a bunch of introduction stuff before we can even get to Rebecca, huh?
Yep, quite a lot. So the first thing is to pull up the poll. For those of you who maybe are unaware of today's topic, is going to be how not to be a secular asshole, which I think we can all feel very personally offended by it, because I have definitely been that person. I'm not sure about you. I know I have been, probably you have too. So hopefully today we'll learn how to not be that person. So Eric, do you want to just pull up the questions and I can read them whilst you do that in Zoom?
We've got three poll questions. The first one is, have you ever felt better than or superior to other people because of your beliefs or lack thereof? Question number two, and these are all yes, no, or I don't know, or not applicable. Question number two is, have you ever been a secular a-hole? And question number three, have you noticed intolerance in the secular community? I think these are some really great questions. And these questions are kind of going to get you in mind, or they're designed to get you in the mindset of what we're going to be discussing today. So, like we say every time, this is anonymous, so we don't know who's answering what. None of that kind of stuff is being kept or recorded. All right. We also want to give a shout out to the atheist community of Austin. They are joining us, and we're streaming this to their Discord channel. So, hey guys, if you are here in the Zoom chat and you are interested in a community of like-minded folks, or have some lively discussions, or kind of just meet some interesting new people, head on over to the Discord channel, the ACA Discord channel. It's a fantastic community of folks, and I think I know I get a lot out of it, just kind of just creeping around. I don't talk much on there, but I do watch quite a bit, and I get a lot out of it too. But so with that out of the way, why don't you tell us about RfRx, Amaia? What is this?
Sure. So RfRx is basically a series of online weekly sessions in which we bring in guests to discuss different topics that are relevant to people who are leaving religion or who have already left religion. This is in no way a replacement for the online community or the support groups. It's more of a complement to these services and a way of providing good advice and coping skills to anyone who needs them right now. So if you have any sort of questions, any feedback, any topic suggestions, any guest suggestions, just anything at all, you can send us an email to rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. And if you want to watch any of our previous RfRx sessions, you can do so in our YouTube channel, and that is youtube.com/recoveringfromreligion. So before we start with the actual session, let me just tell you a bit about what we do in Recovering from Religion in general as a charity. So our mission statement is that we offer hope, healing, and support to those who are struggling with issues of religion and non-belief. So Eric, why don't you go ahead and explain hope?
Heck yes, we offer hope through RfR in the sharing and listening to personal stories. So I kind of say this so many times, but it's still kind of cool. I'm going through this hard time. I'm coming out of my religion, or I'm having some doubts. I'm struggling with something, and I stumble across the RfR podcast, or I stumble across the RfR blog. I read, I listen, and I can relate to some of the stories that people share, some of the personal stories that people are sharing on those two mediums. So I can relate to those, and I hear kind of what they go through and the struggles they had and some of the things that they did, and how they got through it. And it kind of can give me, or may potentially give me, some hope, a light at the end of the tunnel. So we provide hope, like through those two different mediums. We have our blog over at medium.com, and we also have our podcast. So check those out. That's how we provide hope. Now, Amaia, tell us about how we supply healing.
Our helpline is a place in which our agents will listen to you with an empathetic ear and no judgmental criticism to any issues that you may have, which again are related to religion. This is a 24/7 support system. It's completely confidential, and it's just a safe space for you to be able to talk about your problems with someone who is trained to listen to you. If you would like to contact one of our helpline agents, all you have to do is just go to our website, and then we have our telephone number, which you can call, and then you can also chat with one of our helpline agents. And apart from this, we also offer healing by our resources, and we have a resource page for this. And in our resource page, we have all sorts of different articles, books, videos, just podcasts, anything you can imagine, you will find it there. And you can also find it like according to topic. So maybe if you're like an ex-Muslim who is trying to look for information about how to overcome the fear of hell, we have resources for that. If you're trying to overcome some sort of issue related to sexuality, we also have a section for it. So we have all sorts of different resources from any topic that you can imagine. So yeah, I highly encourage you guys to go check it out if you feel like this could be something that you can benefit from. And now, Eric, why don't you explain support, please?
Heck yeah, I will. I love the support side. So for me, the helpline is that Maya just was kind of talking about, is something that I can go to when I definitely need to talk to somebody, like, oh, this is happening now. I've got going through a crisis now, or, hey, I need a resource. I need to talk to somebody kind of like right now. But the support group side is different. It's kind of where you're able to do the long-term healing, the long-term work that's required that won't be able to be done through just a short phone call or just a short chat. This is so the support groups is where we normally meet face to face, but now during the time of COVID, we are meeting virtually via Zoom all over the world. And we're meeting and we're talking about what we're struggling with. And it's a very sort of intimate setting. And the support group leaders are just fantastic people who are able to create a safe space where people can feel comfortable bringing up their emotions, their doubts, their questions, and even some of their trauma to help work through some of these issues that have arisen and maybe and are stemming from their religious past. I know for me, when I started being a support group leader 5 years ago or so, I kind of was all out of it, but all out of my religion, but I still struggled with a lot of things and I didn't really know how to deal with them. But bringing them to these meetings, even as a leader, I was able to bring these to the meetings and kind of like talk to people and get some feedback. And I was able to work through them, just even listening to myself talk. I was able to work through them and feel much, much better and kind of work with it much better. Now, so you can find the nearest one to you at the website that's in the chat, and it's also going to be down in the description of the YouTube channel. Now, Maya talked about the helpline. I'm talking about the support groups. These are both peer support. Most of the folks are not professionally trained to give you professional advice, but sometimes we're going to need that. And that's why we have set up the Secular Therapy Project. And the Secular Therapy Project is where therapists from around the world can apply to be a part of the database. And then you or I, as clients, were able to connect with these therapists through the Secular Therapy website. And these therapists, they're not just admitted willy-nilly, like, hey, I'm Joe Blow, I'm going to submit an application. All right, you're in. No, we have got like a board of fantastic people that will vet these therapists. And only about 40% of the therapists who apply make it into the database. So they are vetted to make sure that, number one, they have the appropriate licensing in their city or state. Number two, to make sure that they maintain a secular practice. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to show up to a therapist's office and sit down at our first meeting, and then at the end of it saying they tell me like, you need to go pray harder, need to go read this verse. That is something that I don't want to have happen. And so to have somebody, a therapist pre-vetted for that is just fantastic. And the third thing they're vetted for is to make sure that they're using evidence-based treatments. And a while ago, we've had some jokes about non-evidence-based treatments, but we won't go into that. I won't give any examples. None of that. None of that. Right, Amaia?
Please don't.
Okay.
Please.
All right. Sounds good. All right, Amaia. So what else do you want to talk about when it comes to RfR?
All right, so we also have our online community, and the online community is an online platform in which you can chat and meet people that share the same backgrounds as you do. So if you are someone from the LGBTQ+ community who has left religion, we have a group for you. If you are a female who just wants to speak to other fellow women, we also have a group for you. We have all sorts of different groups, and it's just a good way of being able to connect with people who really do understand where you're coming from, because they just have the same background as you do. So yeah, apart from the chats, they also hold Sunday night Zoom meetings. And if you would like to join one of these groups, all you have to do is go to our helpline, and then one of our agents will help you go to the appropriate, follow the appropriate steps to be able to join one of these groups if you do meet the criteria. So again, as I said before with the resources, if you feel like you could benefit from meeting people that share the same background as you, please, please, please do contact one of our helpline agents and ask them about our community. And then before we jump to the actual session, I feel like this is the longest intro ever, I just want to briefly talk about volunteering, because volunteering has been such an amazing thing in, I know, my life and in the lives of so many other people that are right now volunteering for RfR. It has been an amazing way of developing my own skills. It has been an amazing way of meeting people, of knowing that, you're spending your free time helping others. So if in the middle of this crazy pandemic, crazy election, crazy just world overall, you feel like you want to give back to the community, you feel like you have some extra time and you want to offer some of your time, please do consider volunteering with us, because we have so many different roles, and I am sure that we will find one that fits your interests and your skills. So if you want to join us as a volunteer, that would be amazing. And all you have to do is go to our volunteering page, where you will find all the information that you need in order to join us. And I've spoken for ages, so Eric, please, would you explain the meeting format?
I was riveted with what you were saying. I just wish you could keep talking. I actually especially love when you say your name, because I say it like Amaia Perez, but you just do this flair, Amaia Perez. I'm like, what did she just say? That's amazing. So I love hearing you when you say your name at the very beginning. I say it so
Thank
blandly.
You. Yeah, learning how to say my name has been one of my greatest achievements. So I'm so happy that you're recognizing it as such.
All right. So moving on, as I've been put in my place, I appreciate that. Let's talk about the meeting format. Just like every week, we have a discussion, and that lasts about an hour or so. And then during this discussion, as we talk about being a secular asshole or not, you may have some questions. Questions that might be asshole related, might not be secular asshole related or not. But if you've got a question, please type them into the chat or send a private message to one of the hosts. And we will make sure to get that in to ask during the Q&A session that happens after the discussion. And that'll last about 15-20 minutes after the discussion. Once we do that, we're going to hear from our founder and director, Dr. Ray, with some closing thoughts. And boy, does he have some fantastic closing thoughts. I always love listening to what Darrel has to say. After Darrel's all done rambling, we get to turn off the recording, open up the lines, and then have a hangout. So that hangout lasts as long as you guys want, and we'll ask our guests if she's able to stick around for a little bit to kind of answer any follow-up questions you may have. So that's kind of the whole deal today. And without further ado, Amaia, what say you introduce our fantastic guest?
Definitely, yeah. I feel like most of you will probably already know her, because I have lost count of the number of times that we have had her in RfRx, but we keep bringing her back. So we have the amazing opportunity of seeing her again. So today we have Rebecca Williams, and I'm just going to tell you a bit about her bio. So Rebecca is a licensed marriage and family therapist in California. She's the owner of Inland Empire Couples Counseling, and she specializes in helping mixed faith and religious/secular couples have connected, intimate, and satisfying relationships. She's offering a free mini course for mixed faith couples, and we're going to put the link in the chat. And fun fact that Rebecca added in her bio is that one of her therapy superpowers is helping people connect across the religious secular divide. So Rebecca, thank you so much for being here today again. How are you doing? How are you feeling about today's session?
I'm so excited to be back. Thank you for having me again.
Great. I love that you're not just being forced to come over here over and over again until the end of time.
Really fun, yeah.
Yeah, one of the RfR volunteer positions is to head to the guest's house and kind of threaten them to like be on the, and so we're really grateful to have the RfR volunteer who's off camera. No, that's not at all what happened. So Rebecca, the topic seems to be directly attacking me because I feel like I can totally relate to being a secular asshole back in my early non-belief days.
I know, right? Like my part of my intro here is like a secular asshole. Is that even possible? Because we're awesome, right?
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes we take our intolerance with us when we leave religion. Sometimes we consider ourselves so enlightened that we forget to examine other parts of ourselves as well. And, you know, sometimes we can do the same obnoxious behaviors that religious folks do, just in the other direction. So I'm here to talk about how to not do that.
I love how, Eric, you said that you were a secular asshole in your like beginning kind of years, when I feel like I can be a secular asshole like nowadays without realizing it, obviously, but like I can definitely relate. So I'm ready to get like properly educated today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use the past tense because after this discussion, I won't be one, of course.
For sure. Never
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of what I'm talking about gets to this difference between like a surface level or first order change and what we would call a second order change. So the first order change is like, well, you switched your beliefs. And so that's like more of a surface thing, but maybe the intolerance or the, you know, thinking that you're better than other people or that you know better or whatever, like that deeper stuff just goes with you. And so you're essentially doing the same things just with a different veneer on it. So what I'm talking about is getting down to the second order thing to make us better people. And as I was preparing this, I thought, okay, so why should people care? Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't really like religious people. I don't interact with them a whole lot. Why does this matter? And I thought, you know what, everybody who's here probably loves some faithful people, would like to have a good relationship with them. Maybe there's some cool people out there that I've heard this from my atheist friends. They're like, oh, I thought that person was really cool. And then I found out they go to church and I was like, meh, maybe that person could have been a cool friend to you. You don't know. We also just live in a religious world. We do. And religious ideologies drive a lot of what happens on like globally. And what that is might depend or might shift depending on where you live, the particular, society or subculture that you live in, but we live in a religious world. And I think that for all of us to be able to advance causes that matter to us, we have to figure out how to talk to and work with religious or faithful folks. Like it really is important. And if we're thinking about it, like this is the world we live in, the life that we have, and it's all we got. So we can contribute to making it better. And if figuring out how to get along with some religious folks and not be assholes to them is necessary for that, then like it's worth it. Let's do it.
Yeah, and even if your goal is to try to change their minds, by being a horrible person to them, you're probably not going to achieve your goal. Like being kind is always easier, faster way of convincing someone that you have the right opinion or that that the way you're thinking is better than theirs. Not to say that should be the goal, but if that is, still being a horrible person not going to help you get there faster.
You're totally right. You're totally right. And I am aware that I'm holding up the mirror to us. And before I do that, I want everybody who's listening to know that I love you and I respect the hell out of you, because it takes a special kind of person to completely change their worldview. It takes a lot of bravery to walk away from communities and families that are sometimes all we've ever known, and to take a step that might mean, complete isolation or shunning from our family groups, realigning who we are and how we fit in the world and redefining our identity. Like that's a pretty big thing. And I have tremendous respect for people who have been through that journey and are here going, okay, how can I still be better? How do I make sense of this? And so I want you to know that it's like in that spirit that I'm holding up this mirror that says, I'm going to be hard on us because I love us and I want us to be our best.
Yeah,
Cool.
I feel like I kind of went through like a phase of when I was coming out of the belief system I was previously in. I was so scared. I was very quiet and mostly just devoured and gobbled up as much knowledge and education and kind of like, what is this new world? And so I didn't really say much at all. But then as I began to gain the knowledge and began to kind of gain the confidence, I would step my toe out and gradually become more and more of an asshole over time. So that's kind of the pattern that I noticed that I followed with my own deconversion.
Sure. And then I think that lots of people move through that phase. And then you kind of settle into, well, who is it that you really want to be? Mm-hmm. And what are the values that you want to live by? And that's where hopefully we'll get to end today. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Eric, because I think that a lot of times the like behaviors that we would describe as being the asshole type behaviors are coming from a place where we are either anticipating that people are going to reject us. And so we're like doing a sort of preemptive strike that's like, well, I'm going to be a dick to you before you can insult me. We just start out being kind of prickly and defensive. And sometimes legitimately, like we're working our shit out on someone else. I have issues with religion. I have issues with, my own trauma with how I was raised. And here's this person who belongs to that group. And I'm like working my stuff out on them, which isn't really fair to that person most of the time, right? It's probably not the person's fault.
I freaking love that. I think you nailed it. That's a lot of some of this early discussion and kind of assholery was me trying to figure things out, and sort through some of my thoughts. Yeah. Damn it, Rebecca. Every single time you do this, and this is like right off the bat too.
It's gonna be a good one for you, Eric.
Yeah.
Some of the suggestions that I have for how not to be a secular asshole are my own, just things that I've observed from working with clients, from being going through that experience myself and being in this community. And some of these come from some religious people that I know. I put a call out and asked, all right, give me some feedback for my religious and faithful friends. What is it that we do that gets under your skin? How are we offensive? How are we, intolerant or whatever? And I took their answers and then I looked back over at the people who responded to my request, and like every single one of them are like highly educated folks.
Oh.
All of them. They're kind, they're intelligent. These are people that I think you can trust as far as like the suggestions that I'm going to give back to you. I don't think they're people who, have an agenda, at least the individuals who responded to my request for feedback. So I'll put that out there. Okay. So my first tip is to separate the individual from the institution. So whoever it is
that's so hard to do, Rebecca. You want to put the whole, like, you're Catholic, therefore you have to like everything that and agree with everything that the Catholic priests do and the Pope does. And come on, Rebecca.
I mean, unless I suppose you are having an audience with the Pope, then perhaps this doesn't apply. But, you know, other than that, whoever the person is that you're talking to, you don't have to make that individual person responsible to answer for the entire institution or the entire belief system. And along with that, don't assume that the people who are in that group aren't aware of the problems within it. I have several, like 2 Christian friends and a Catholic friend who responded with some version of this, that like it's very frustrating to them when people presume that they're not aware of the problems that exist within the institution. And, you know, they have their own personal reasons for why they, you know, continue their belief or continue their affiliation or, you know, whatever. But that was a thing that was important, is to not, they might not be, right? You might encounter some people who have no idea about some of the problematic elements that exist in their religious group. But you might go a long way in not assuming that they're unaware of them, because you might find people who are.
I think that was one of the biggest mistakes too I made early on when having these kinds of discussions with folks, was assuming that they believed in everything that whatever religion they were a part of, they believed in all of those same things. And I slowly, because I'm not all that smart, and it took me a while, and I slowly began to start asking them some clarifying questions before I could fully understand where they were coming from. And that helped out quite a lot. And maybe I'm jumping ahead, but actually asking those questions helped give me some empathy for folks too. And it dropped my assholery down and my irritation down too a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And just like to ask with some genuine, honest curiosity that allows space for the person to tell you. They might genuinely believe the tenets of whatever faith as they're, you know, taught by the organization, or they might not. They might have their own nuanced belief system, and we just don't know unless we ask. And you can ask questions that are like curious and respectful without being an asshole.
I feel like that is quite difficult to do, because if you're asking questions to someone about an opinion that you hold very strongly, it's only natural to be like, I'm asking you this because I want you to reach the same conclusions as I do. So like, I totally appreciate that is super important, but I can absolutely admit that is going to be a challenge for me, because
absolutely. Yeah. This is why I said at the beginning, like, I'm holding a mirror up to us because I believe that we can be good, decent, honest, better people, and not because this is like easy, because it takes like a real level of self-reflection and like commitment to your own principles and values to not do that. Exactly what you're saying.
Right. Well, before you get into that, the rest of the list that your friends provided for you, like, so I'm looking at that mirror and I'm seeing me being an asshole. What does that look like? Like, what are some of the signs to like kind of backing up? What are some of the signs or things that you would kind of define as being an asshole?
That's an excellent question. I think that it's disrespect and intolerance for other people and ideas. It's definitely disrespect for individuals. Sometimes it shows up as being condescending, even kind of bullying towards others. And so that's sort of one definition of it, is maybe how we can be rude or disrespectful or intolerant of other people. And then there's this other part that's like where we are maybe elitist, or we carry some of the problematic things that we learned in religion with us, even when we leave the religion behind. So that might be like, we take our misogyny with us when we leave religion. We took our homophobia with us, or our racism with us. And we carry some of those harmful belief systems and perpetuate them in secular communities where we're still kind of classist or xenophobic, which some of that we learned in religious groups, and some of that is just existing in societies, and we still can choose whether we want to perpetuate those or work to fight them out or root them out.
Got it.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah. I think that kind of gives us a good kind of framework to start from, and then going. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, the elitist and the bullying and disrespect, and then carrying over some harmful beliefs.
Right,
too.
right. I just happened to see a comment on the chat right now that I wanted to respond to about the term faithful. When I originally asked my question of my friends, I used the term religious, and one of them her response came with like, I know your heart, and so I'm not offended, but I want to tell you this. She says she really doesn't like the term religious because of all those problems that exist in organized religion. She says religious doesn't feel like it fits me, and that she prefers the term faithful because she has faith in God, or maybe believer would also work for her. So I'm actually conscientious about using that word to be respectful of my friend who trusted me with her thoughts and her willingness to give me feedback about how I said something that felt othering to her. So that's where that phrasing is coming from.
Got it.
Yeah. So just as far as like those other little parts where we take sexism with us, we, perpetuate our racism or classism or ableism or whatever. I know that RfR has done other sessions that have addressed those topics. So I'll just point you to look at some of those. But in a nutshell, like be humble and teachable. Recognize that, we can be defensive when we're challenged. We can move from a place where we know the truth about God to knowing the real truth about religions. And there again, we're like taking that certainty or that like dogmatic view with us. And the best advice is to just like sit back and listen when somebody gives you feedback. When you encounter someone who says, hey, that's not cool. Don't do that. You're being an asshole. Don't be too defensive about it. Like be realistic about what you don't know and what you haven't experienced, and allow other people to be the expert on their own experience. If they tell you, this is how your comment landed to me, this is how that looks, these are the stereotypes that you're referencing that maybe you weren't aware of or whatever, you go, okay, thanks for telling me. Because there is an element of trust that a person places in you when they bring something like that up. They presume that you would want to know it so that you could change it.
That makes perfect sense. I was just thinking that most people don't usually tell you if something has hurt their feelings or you have been like a horrible person. So do you have any sort of tips to like identify that maybe something you have said? And I know this can be very obvious, but just for anyone who is maybe wondering, does this comment that I made, was it horrible? Was it not horrible?
As far as like how to solicit that feedback to get
maybe, yeah. Maybe if you're like confused, maybe you're not sure, because sometimes we may not even be aware that we are offending the other person, because maybe you don't speak to religious people as much, or I don't know.
I think that stating your intentions goes a long way, especially if you're going into a conversation that might be fraught. Or you know that you're talking about sensitive topics. You can just start by saying, hey, I realize that this isn't something that I know a whole lot about, or I don't mean to offend you. And let me ask this question. Please tell me if there was a better way I could have asked it, or if that's not something that's appropriate to ask or whatever. Like when you put your intention out there that you mean to be respectful, then I think people feel a lot more comfortable telling you when you've crossed a line. Where if you haven't expressed that, they might just make a calculation that like this person doesn't care, isn't worth my time, and they might not be willing to continue conversing with you. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, we talked about really listening to people when you want to connect with them. And I think it's important to note that you might think that you know what someone else believes. You might think that you know what their opinion is. You might think that you know what their experience is, but you can't ever really know what someone else thinks, believes, has lived through. I know even in my training as a therapist, right? Like I've been learning this stuff about the brain and how our brain stores and processes emotion and overcoming trauma and everything. And there's like billions of connections between the neurons in your brain. And there just is no way, even when you know someone really, really well, there is no way that one person can ever fully know what it's like to live in someone else's body. You just can't ever fully know it. So even if you have a really great idea of who someone is and what they think, you need to allow that there's some space there that you might be wrong. And even just that acknowledgement that you might be wrong in your assumptions about them, or they might be different than how you think that they are, will open the door that you can have more productive conversations with that person, that there's ability to connect with them. But when you're kind of dogmatic about like, I know who you are, I know what you believe, I know what kind of a person you are, then you are, offensive, distancing, you're an asshole, basically.
It kind of makes sense too, because the more times you're wrong and you fix it, the closer and closer you can get to understanding that person. You'll never, obviously, like you said, never get it 100%. But if you really want to know a person, being wrong and being is kind of a good indicator of how to adjust the model and your understanding of a person. Sounds like. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So there's a big benefit to being humble. If
Right.
and this all is kind of like talking about people that you care about, and like friends and family that you really care about, or just even strangers on the street that you decide to care about too.
Sure. Or like it might be a coworker that you have to work with, and you could make your own life a whole lot easier if you figure out how to not make an enemy of that person.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so my next tip for how not to be a secular asshole is to check your agenda. When you're talking with someone about whatever, I'm presuming that these are someone speaking about religious things. You're talking about something that has some, religious element to it. If your only purpose in having this conversation, or your only agenda, is to just like poke holes in it, to like attack the other person's faith because you're working your shit out on them, because this is fun for you or whatever, like let it go. That's an asshole move. Right? Like,
I love doing that though. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I do that.
Like,
I used to do that all the time, but
no
it's
one will
so
want
fun.
to be your friend anymore if you're always poking holes in things for the sake of poking holes.
That's true. But it's so fun. So fun.
So I look at this as like, if we can separate the religious element from it, where I have my own baggage about religion, how I think it harms society, how it harmed me, how it keeps my family away from me, whatever. If you can like separate your own feelings from the topic, and let's just look at it as if this was any other topic that someone was really into, like Star Wars or Harry Potter or football or wrestling or bird watching, who knows, doesn't even matter, right? Like some hobby that someone's really into. And if every time your coworkers brought that up, they're talking about football, and you were like, blah, 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 traumatic brain injuries, it shouldn't exist. Or someone talks about Harry Potter and they're like, transphobic, blah, blah, blah. Like, and like you always had some attack when a person casually mentioned the thing that they're interested in. Like, no, that's the part, like nobody would want to be your friend. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
They're
not your intellectual punching bags, right? Like it's not, I'm not there just to satisfy your, your debating kind of wishes, I guess.
Yeah. And like there might be a time where you're having a conversation about I don't even know what, the nature of God, and like that's what you're talking about. That might be an appropriate venue for you to be like poking some holes and engaging in a debate with someone. But when people just casually mention a thing that they're interested in, like just let it go. Or if the only reason that you're asking about the thing is so that you can like you said, turn them into your punching bag, like that's a dick move. Just stop.
Man, you're taking all, like my wife can see me doing this from a mile away. She's like, I ask a question, she glares at me, and
She
it's just
knows,
like,
right?
she knows, yeah, she knows, like, knock it off, Eric, knock it off. But
Right. My other strong encouragement here is to watch out for the times when you're being the devil's advocate in an argument, especially where whatever the topic is being discussed is like real life and relevant and significant to the people who are talking about it. I don't know if you've ever witnessed this happening where, you know, you might have some people who are talking about something like sexual assault, the prevalence of sexual assault in the workplace or something, and people are talking about like real life issues, and someone else comes in and is like, well, let's just say hypothetically for the sake of argument. It's like, no, your hypothetical argument does not hold weight here against these other people's like real life lived experience. Or you know, racism or something. People are talking about where they've experienced discrimination, and someone else comes in and goes, oh, well, let's just say, what if this other thing? Like, no, don't be the devil's advocate and play that card when people are talking about things that have real life consequences to them.
Yeah, I found that oftentimes when people say, you know, the devil advocate thing, it's just an excuse to share their racist, homophobic, sexist views without sounding as horrible as they would if they wouldn't say that devil advocate thing at the beginning. So I love that you said that, because I've definitely seen that happening around me. I'm sure I've done it too. And it's just not a nice thing. It's just horrible.
It's just not. Again, on checking your agenda, you want to separate the individual from the institution. Do I actually have something to discuss with this person, or is my beef with something bigger than them? And then if you are, okay, so my presumptions, all my thoughts on like checking your agenda were all like, you're probably wrong, you probably need to pull it back. But that's not always the case, right? Like if you're really trying to compromise with the other person, or you really want to understand them, like you ask those curious questions, you listen and you respond with kindness. If you want to get to know someone because they seem like they're a cool person, just like be nice. Or this is a coworker or someone that you have to work together with on a project, or your neighbor or whatever. Like you can, don't do things that are going to burn bridges, right? Like you can still exercise kindness and respect. And I think that here's where separating the individual and the institution is worthwhile, because you can respect the person. Like I respect them as a human and think that they are worthy of being treated with dignity because they're another human being. And that is different from saying, I, condone and uphold their belief system. And like that distinction can be useful as well.
Yeah, I think that one of the, go ahead, Amaia.
I was just saying yes. Nothing relevant to add to that.
I'm glad that you brought up separate the person from the institution again, because that's something that I think in the heat of the discussion is very easy to just want to make them the straw man and prop them up and in the place of the institution, when that's just really not them at all.
Yeah. Okay, my next tip is to treat other people with respect. We kind of talked about this a little bit already with like allowing that person to be unique, where maybe they don't believe everything or the worst parts about the religion they belong to. I love this example from, I can't remember which book it was. I think Braving the Wilderness from Brene Brown, where she talks about guns and gun rights in the US, and that she really has to work hard to carve out this space for herself in the middle, where some people would say that, well, because she is a gun owner or has gun owners in her family or something like that. Forgive me, Brene, it's been a while since I've read the book. I might be messing up the exact details, but like, because people think she might say something that is, oh, well, people in my family own guns or something, that then everyone would assume that she's like pro NRA. And she's like, but I'm actually not. I disagree with them as a lobbying group. I think that they're not responsible in these certain ways, But if she says that, then these other people will be like, you just want to take away our guns. And she's like, no, that's not it. She has to work really hard to resist being pulled into either one of those polarized camps. Where what she's saying is something different, but people react to her and make a quick assumption by assigning her to, oh, you must believe in one of these extremes. So my suggestion is to just like allow people to be unique. They might not be as bad a person as you think that they are.
Gosh, again, separating the person from the institution. I don't know if it's something that's just like easy or innate in us humans, but at least for me, I always have this tendency to fight against making things either black or white. It's so much easier to deal with things, it seems, when life is black and white, and not deal with the gray areas or anything like that, or even acknowledge that there's gray areas. And I don't know if that was something that's was instilled in me from my religious days or not, like if it was a part of the religion, like either you do this or you're going to hell or something like that. But that's a very big thing that I struggle with on a regular basis, even in these days of such political dissidence and turmoil. I find myself not separating people from the institution at all.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of both, Eric. Like a lot of us learn the black and white thinking in religion. And there certainly are some religious groups that promote that more heavily than others. And so that can be one of the things that we take with us when we leave religion, is the black and white thinking. But it also is just kind of human nature, and it's an easy shorthand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think is it called a heuristic or something? Is that kind of what it's called? Maybe not.
I don't know. I feel like one of the super smart people in the chat is going to clue us in on that. I'm not sure.
Hopefully.
If that's the appropriate term or not. Yeah. So like along the idea of treating other people with respect is to like resist the urge for digs. So one of my friends gave this example of a public debate that was happening about, I can't even remember what the topic was anymore. And the debate was totally fine. People were respectful. And then one person was like it says this in the Bible and you don't even do it. And now that person has crossed the line and you're attacking the other person's faith and criticizing them for not following the tenets of their own faith. And so now it's become personal and the conversation gets derailed, right? Like if the person had just stopped at, we're debating this topic, we're debating, I honestly, I should have looked it up to be ready for this, but like now we're not talking about the thing anymore. It's become personal and you'll activate somebody else's defensiveness. So if you want to be treating other people with respect, you have to resist the urge to like take the low blow when it's available, especially if you're doing that just to prove a point, I guess.
Or to feel better about yourself. Gosh, I was such an asshole because like I would do that too. I would take the low blow if I was kind of feeling a little like I needed a shot of dopamine or points on my side or something.
Right. Also on treating other people with respect is to not be condescending. And again, talking about the human and not the belief system, like you're not better than them or more valuable as a person. And so watch that you're treating the other person with respect. Even if you don't share beliefs, right? And you think their beliefs are wrong, that's fine. You can still be respectful to them as a human and not insult them and not, be an asshole.
Well, actually, Rebecca.
Did you just actually mean?
That's something that, correct me if I'm wrong, it's something I learned that us, like a lot of us men do quite often to women, and that's pretty condescending to like mansplain, I think is the term or something.
It's definitely a thing, although I must confess I can be extremely condescending when I think that I'm right and the other person is wrong. So if I have ever been condescending to you, I do apologize. I know it is a flaw, something to definitely improve on.
And lastly, my suggestion is don't trivialize sacred things. And this is super hard. I think when we disagree that thing, that whatever the person or group holds to be sacred, especially if that was our former religious group, like maybe there's a time and a place that you work that stuff out, but like don't mock the things that people hold most dear.
Now, it sounds like you're talking about sitting around a table and people praying. In some, like that sounds like an example, like they are the folks that are praying are holding that sacred, like, oh, we need to pray, and I'm sitting there like, this is dumb. And I'm okay, you guys pray, I'm going to stuff my face because I'm hungry. Why do I need to wait for you, type of thing?
Yeah. And like you can look at it in a non-valued way. So it's not good or bad. It's just like you violated a social norm. And so of course people are going to look sideways at you.
Okay.
Right? Like maybe that's okay. I don't know. I try really hard to, so I come from a Mormon background, right? And there's, in Mormonism, there are temples and there's things that happen inside of the temples and like ordinances and teachings and stuff that are there that are considered to be very sacred and very holy. And it would be extremely disrespectful, hurtful for me to go to my Mormon family members and talk out loud about the stuff that they're not supposed to talk about outside of the temple, right? Or to make fun of those things to their face.
And this is to people you care about and you
Yes,
want to
to
maintain
people
a
you
relationship.
care about.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And we're not talking about like, I don't know. I mean, because you're saying like don't trivialize sacred things, and I can immediately jump to the satire that or the drawings that Charlie Hebdo did in France about Muhammad, the drawings of Muhammad, and how not drawing Muhammad is very sacred to Islam, Muslims, but they did it anyways. But it seems like a completely different category here. We're not talking about making blanket statements or anything. This is mostly how to relate to people that you care about, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know some stuff. You wouldn't like go to your coworker or your neighbor and like make fun of the stuff that they hold to be sacred. Like that's just not cool.
And a part of that, I guess, is first starting to understand what is sacred to them.
Yeah. And I think it also comes with like to Amaia's question before about like, you know, sometimes people don't tell you when you've offended them. And so if you get some feedback from someone who you need to work with or who lives near you or who you just care about as a person, and they say, hey, could you not talk that way or say those things in front of me? Then you can choose to receive that feedback and go, okay, this is a relationship that I value, or that it's at least worth keeping on the nice, playing nice with this person, then I'm going to do that. Maybe because it's in my interest, maybe because I just care about being a kind person. And so, all right, if that matters to that person, then I'll do that.
It's not that difficult, really. It's not like, I'm not trying to sound rude, but I feel like there's so many topics that you can talk about that don't have to be religion.
Yeah.
They can be just like the most pure, wholesome kind of topics that have no debate at all. Why not choose those topics instead of, you know, poking at the religious belief of someone else who is not interested in debating you?
Yeah. And this was where I think, again, it's useful to come back to that distinction between individuals and institutions. Because what I am not saying is that religion is out of bounds and there should be no critiques of it. And we should all like, you know, bow down and be completely deferential. That is not at all what I am saying. because I think that we should be hard on institutions. We should use our critical thinking skills and be critical of those belief systems and analyze them and figure out whether they work for us or not, and stand up for marginalized groups of people when the dominant belief system is disenfranchising people or discriminating against them. Like, we should be hard on those bigger institutions and systems, but we should always be kind and respectful to individuals.
So obviously we are assuming now that these individuals, these hypothetical individuals, are being nice to us and that they're not trying to engage. But what about for those people who are doing, they're being assholes to us in the religious dogma and
Sure.
doing all the things that we are trying to avoid doing, but they're doing it to us? Does that give us permission to maybe be a bit, a bit awful with them, or is that not allowed?
I totally love this question. I'm not going to tell you what is allowed or not allowed, because that's like not my call to make. You have to decide for yourself, right?
Fair enough.
There might be some times where someone is treating you awfully and you decide that the relationship isn't worth preserving and you want to go ahead and burn that bridge, and it feels good doing it.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do, go right ahead,
Yeah.
There might be other times though where you look at this is how the person is treating me, and I can still choose how I want to be. I don't have to treat them the same way that they're treating me, whether that's good or bad. So at the end of the day, what are my values? What kind of a person do I want to be? And if I react in this particular way, am I going to feel good about it? Or am I later going to regret that I said or did that thing? I think you come back to like yourself and you living your own life without regrets, you living your own life according to a system of values that makes sense to you. And that's how you choose to decide. That's how you choose to respond, so that you are living in a way that's consistent for you and not in reaction to someone else, whether they're treating you respectfully or not. That's what I think is going to leave people.
Oh, I love that distinction. I love that distinction about just living how you want to live instead of living a life of just reacting. Because, people can also goad me into having these discussions and getting me worked up as well. So it works both ways. And if I can maybe identify it in myself, I might be able to kind of short circuit this. And kind of thinking back through my own different phases as I was going through the transition, if I had sat down and listened to this talk, I don't know if, I think it would have made me think, but I think it would have been it would have probably shortened the amount of time that I kind of was going through that asshole phase. But it wouldn't have been like an immediate thing. I would have had to ponder this for quite a bit. Yeah.
And like, there's real reasons that people go through that asshole phase, because religion hurt us. We're angry, we're traumatized, we are sometimes have our whole lives and identities turned upside down. Like, there's good reason why some of this stuff shows up, and you can choose if that's how you want to continue to be, if that's how you want your life to always be, or if you want to try to move towards something else.
Got it.
I can only imagine it gets more difficult if, I'm thinking now Christmas is approaching and obviously family gatherings are approaching. And I can only imagine that a lot of people who are watching us have religious family members that they have to see every Christmas, every birthday, Thanksgiving, whatever things you guys celebrate in America, I don't know. So I feel like this is going to be I feel like for me it would be really, really difficult to try to be the bigger person, quote unquote, if that like other religious person is like constantly saying like, you should read the Bible more, you should pray more, blah, blah, all those things.
Right. It's hard. It's really hard. Yeah. And I mean, this wasn't really part of what we had planned, but, talking about the holidays, like, you can decide which parts you want to participate in. If your family has certain traditions, you could participate in some of them and not all of them. You could decide to make new meaning out of the traditions, that Christmas used to mean this, and now I've found that it means something else. to me. You could.
Oh, so like if
yeah.
I didn't want to participate in a tradition, I can go to the Recovering from Religion YouTube channel and maybe watch an RfRx or something like that. Is that what you're saying? Because I
Yes.
hear that's exactly what you're saying.
And quite
Yeah.
appropriately, we are going to have an RfRx session about holidays right before Christmas.
Love
So
it. Okay.
it's going to be perfect timing.
Okay. But yeah, like you can decide how you want to be and what's going to be, you know, the right thing for you, and also how you want your family relationships to be. Like you can set the stage for, this is the kind of daughter I want to be, this is the kind of sibling, you know, brother or sister I want to be, and hope that your family will want to have that same type of relationship with you and be willing to invest in a respectful relationship, just like you're willing to respect them, right? Because I think about something like, you know, if I would really like, could we please not have the preachy, let's have a lesson part of the Christmas gathering? And I want to ask for that from my family because I want them to respect my belief system. I have to look at, well, am I willing to respect their belief system in return? So there might be some things that you kind of put up with or just go along with because they're going to respect you in this other way.
Yeah. I remember coming out of, like, there was this time when I was transitioning out of the previous belief system where there was like this one Thanksgiving where I was kind of in a place where I was still kind of building my worldview, and I was so confused and didn't know how to react, but I didn't like the feeling of this holiday gathering. And I got angry and I clammed up and I just walked out. In a sense, I was an asshole because I didn't tell anybody where I was going. I didn't tell anybody that I'd had enough, but I couldn't take it anymore. I was just confused and unsure of myself. But I needed to go somewhere else so I could not blow up and be a worse person. Even though I was like a bit of an ass, or I was an asshole, I could have been a much bigger asshole if I hadn't walked away. But it was this very palpable sense of incredible frustration that I was experiencing just because of my lack of experience as a non-believer, and lack of any other examples of how to deal with people that believe what you used to believe, but believe what you no longer believe. So I don't know if I felt like I needed to say that because I don't think I'm the only one who kind of experienced that during the holiday. It was something that just came up and unexpected, and I don't know if I handled it well or not, but it happened.
I'm going to commend you for doing that. And like, I think I appreciate you bringing up the example, because maybe we should be talking about this again, not as a black or white. You either are a secular asshole or you're not, but that behavior can exist on a spectrum. It was probably better for you to walk out than to stay and blow up at your family. Even though getting up and walking out, some people might have been like, what's wrong with Eric? But you might have hurt some people or offended some people, but like that was probably better than blowing up at them.
And at the time, I was really hard on myself. I was thinking, why couldn't I have properly handled the situation, or why couldn't I have properly expressed myself? But I just didn't have that capability at the time. I couldn't articulate what I was feeling in this, and even why at the time. So yeah, I was it was really hard on myself and just hearing you say this, paying you $125 an hour for your professional advice to say this is just like, I almost came to tears just because you said, hey, yeah, you might have been the best decision you could have made at the time.
Yeah, I feel like, just to echo what Rebecca said, when you were telling the story, I was thinking, I think walking away is one of the least asshole moves you can make at all, because you're not actually engaging with them. So I feel like it would have been so much more awful if you stayed and like be rude to them. I feel like walking away is a perfectly acceptable thing to do in almost any situation. Like that's just self-care, I think. You can correct me, Rebecca, if I'm wrong, but
absolutely.
I think so. And just to let you know, because I know you have asked for timestamps, it's 7 past when it's 2 in the morning here. I don't know what time is Central because I'm awful at maths, but just for you to know, it's almost 10 past.
Thanks.
So there's an asshole spectrum, it sounds like.
Yes, definitely. And I think that along that, it's such an important point because you can be kind and compassionate to yourself while you're just working on where you are right now. And maybe there's a few steps further in the direction of the person that you want to be that you can take, but like, don't beat yourself up for being someone, for not being who you are. I don't know. I don't feel like I said what I meant to say there, but like, you can have goals, have aspirations, have a direction or a trajectory of growth, and also be kind to yourself where you are right now and be taking small steps in the direction that you want to go to being the kind of person that you want to be.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay. So one of my, I can't remember, I've lost track of my tips. Don't assume. This is pretty basic, getting along well with other humans though. It's like, don't assume. Your reasons for not believing aren't the inverse of the other person's reasons for believing, if that makes sense. Like if you left religion because it harmed you in this way, it's unfair to presume that the other person then loves and supports all of those things that you hate, right? Like they might have a completely different, unique configuration for why they believe what they do. A couple other things that came up on the assumption was like, don't assume that a person has their faith because that's all they know. Maybe they have looked at lots of other options and they made a conscious choice that this was what was right for them. Like, we don't know unless you take the time to ask. I heard also like, not all religious people are anti-intellectual or ascribe to far-right ideologies. And, maybe we're being unfair to presume that because you have faith that you are the very worst extreme version of that, which might not be true, right? Sometimes you're going to have to let some things go, like we talked about. If it's something like a casual acquaintance says that they're going to send you prayers, all right, maybe you can just be like, thanks. Assume that it means that they're thinking about you or that they have compassion for the situation that you're in. Like, all right, maybe you just let that go. But it might be different if you have someone who is really close to you and knows your experience with religion and knows that you're an atheist and they keep saying that they're going to pray for you. In that case, you might be like, hey, we need to set a boundary and talk about this and how it's not helpful for me, but you don't have to like call it every single time someone says Merry Christmas, every single time someone says, that they're praying for you or something. Some of that you just might need to let go. And my suggestion for you is that you might be a happier person if you can learn to do that. And where I really want to make sure that we've teased this a little bit, but I'm going to make sure that we get around to this idea that this is my last suggestion. You decide what your values are, and then figure out what it looks like to live according to your values. Back to the idea that we take our black and white thinking with us. We take, lots of these things with us when we leave religion. We often go through a phase where we're living our life in opposition to religion. We're living our life in opposition to the values or norms of the group that we just left, where you still are essentially being governed by the norms of that group or the beliefs or the things that are taboo or not taboo or whatever. You just now are in opposition to it instead of adhering to it. But your life is still essentially governed by or heavily influenced by that belief system.
It sounds like the anti-life, like I'm against this, I'm against that,
Mhm.
I'm against the other thing, and yeah, when I yeah. I haven't fully formed my thoughts, but I can relate to what you're saying, as you
Yeah,
can tell.
again, like normalizing this is a phase. It's part of the deconversion process. And when you know that you're in that phase, you can move towards, I'm going to decide who I am and what I stand for. What are my values? Like, what are the causes that matter to me? What kind of person do I want to be? What really are my values as a human? And then I'm going to live according to those values. I'm going to find people who are like-minded. And when you're looking at living according to your values, whether that's something that, maybe your values are things like honesty and integrity, maybe it's ambition, maybe you find that you really are passionate about social justice issues, maybe your values are atheism and secular humanism, and that's fine. I'm not going to criticize you for that. You just have to decide, like, is this really who I am and what I'm all about? Or am I still living in this place where I'm in opposition to my former life? And then when you know what your values are, you might find some really cool people who you get to form awesome relationships with, who are a great fit for you because you all share values. And that may or may not include people who are religious. You might find people who know your heart, who are passionate about the same things that you're passionate about, and also maybe have an affiliation with a religious group. And that doesn't really have to matter, because these things that matter the most to you and to them, you're aligned with. And that doesn't have, like I'm saying, that doesn't have to be the truth for everybody, but like there is possibility there that we could live more fulfilling lives and be our best selves and be able to really see and affect change in our world to make our world a better place when we can align with other good people who share our values and care about making the world a better place for everybody. That's the hope.
Well, I like that. Thank you very much for this. I mean, I really, especially towards the end where you're like, don't let what you don't want, don't let your old religion kind of still control you by being totally doing the opposite of it or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of really important. And it's something that I learned, unfortunately, late in life, and I could have been so much better if I had learned it sooner, but I'm really glad that I got that now and can live a little bit better going forward from this point on. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
So you got anything else?
No, that was what I had prepared for today. Yeah, I'm ready to take some questions.
That's perfect because we have quite a list.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Sounds great. So I'm just gonna go and just ask the first question if that's okay. So the first question is, and I haven't read this, so forgive me if it makes no sense. Where do you think Christians, as well as other religious groups, get the idea that secular and non-religious people and non-believers are mean, snarky assholes who have no morals and lack kindness, aka the angry, immoral atheist stereotype?
Okay. I think that partly that stereotype exists as a fear or control mechanism. Like, you don't have to listen to those people because they're just angry and immoral and whatever. Sometimes I think that they exist out of just fear of the unknown. And if I'm completely honest, I think that sometimes when the people are in the angry atheist phase, when you've just left religion, we sometimes can reinforce that stereotype.
Yeah, I think that some of the people that we hear the most are the loud, angry people, whether it's an atheist or a non-believer, or whether it's a Democrat or Republican. angry people are often the people we hear the loudest and the most. There are a ton of happy-go-lucky atheists, and we had a whole kind of discussion about that with Chris Johnson on his book A Better Life, about like these people who are happy with their lives being atheists share their stories. And I also think too that at times this angry atheist, this angry immoral atheist, is a straw man, where people can use this argument, prop it up, and then beat up on that, even though it's not like the real thing necessarily.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got? What is the flip side of being an atheist asshole? How can you keep the positive and kind of leave the negative? Do you have any additional thoughts about that?
Okay, so the question is,
what would it look like for someone who is not an asshole atheist or an asshole non-believer or an angry? I guess it would look like you.
Yes, exactly.
It would look like Dr. Ray and Gail Jordan and our former helpline director, Todd, because they're all like just fantastic fucking people. And they get angry every now and then, but they're awesome.
Sure. And again, I want to like normalize that we go through these phases, right? And so when you get to the other side, you kind of decide, all right, well, what are the causes that matter to me? What are the values? What is the life that I want to live? And you figure out how to let some stuff go and how to live in peace with other people. And so, some of that might be you occasionally have your snarky moments or you show up for causes that really matter to you. But I think that the other side of the angry atheist is where you're living a life that isn't defined by your opposition to religion. It's not defined by your whole being, and all that you're about isn't I'm an angry atheist, which again is probably a straw man, but yeah, I think it's just being a happy person, doing your thing, loving your life. And being being an atheist is part of who you are, but it's not all of who you are. And so you're in touch with those other things too.
You can have other hobbies apart from annoying religious people. Like that's allowed, even if you're an atheist. So someone is asking, it's giving a bit of a background of their personal kind of story. So I'm just going to read it through. So they say, I still have a few encounters with persons that I don't care about, where my desire to be a secular asshole is because I want to reject and hurt the religious evangelists because it feels good for me. And I hope that if enough atheists aggressively challenge them, they will start to doubt their imaginary views, or at least be sensitive that there are a lot of atheists that disagree with them. If I approach with genuine concern, then I wish to challenge what they tell me. Is that rude or deceptive of my part?
Okay. So if I approach them with genuine concern and then I want to challenge them, isn't that rude or deceptive on my part? Well, I guess you have to answer that for yourself. Are you being rude and deceptive? I mean, I think that it's okay for us to say, these are the changes I would like to see in the world. Maybe I will respectfully push for those changes. But I will tell you what I know about people and what makes people change, right? This is an area that I can speak to with some authority, because that's what therapists do, is we're experts in helping people change their ideas, change their lives, change their patterns. You don't get a person to change by directly challenging or belittling who they are and what they think. You will activate their defenses, and they will further entrench themselves. So if your agenda really is that you want to see change in the world, then you don't approach it by aggressively attacking the people. That is working against your goal. And to the other part, like, I want to reject and hurt the religious evangelist because it feels good to me. I mean, you can choose to continue to do that. And I would encourage you to periodically question, is this the person that I want to be? And if that behavior is in line with your values, go right ahead because you feel great about it. If you get to a point that that behavior isn't in line with your values anymore, then you can decide to leave it.
Yeah,
and I think that a lot of what you were just talking about is like how to work with people that you really care about, that you want to maintain relationships with, or even want to build relationships with, not necessarily the stranger screaming preacher on the street corner or something.
And I know I definitely got to a point where, like you're saying, the stranger, the person who knocks on my door, the people who send me unsolicited religious propaganda in the mail, I got to a point where that feels like a waste of my time. At a certain point, I don't get anything out of engaging in that argument. And so it's easy for me to let it go. There might have been a point in time, or there may be a time in the future where I would gain something out of it. And I would be glad that I had the conversation. Maybe it gave me a chance to work out my own thoughts, and I was glad for doing it. And, personally, the phase that I'm in my life right now, I just don't have time for that. And so I go, all right, I walk by, I let it go. I'll, choose another battle.
Nice.
Another question that was very related to this one was coming from someone who says that they find it really difficult to respect people who kind of support certain religions that are so harmful to others, and also to themselves. So what they're asking is, how can they take it less personally when these people who are so still so strong believers of these harmful ideologies, how can they take it less personally when they continue to support the church or system? And how can they deal with it better, I guess?
That is a really hard one. It's really hard. I'm thinking about stuff that I've seen going around with this recent election cycle in the US, where people are saying, like, how can you say that you love me as a maybe non-binary, not straight person, and yet you vote for people who actively hate me or want to oppress me? Like, how can I believe that your love for me is genuine, right? Or like, how can you continue to support these leaders or belong to this church that harms me and is so against me? My answer to that question is like, there isn't an easy answer to it. And sometimes it's extremely painful. And sometimes the choice that we're faced with is like the loss of the relationship or continuing in a relationship that hurts us. And I'm not going to say that there is a right way to go on that. If your best chance of having a good relationship with that person, the family member or friends who continue to support the group that oppresses or hates you, is to tell them how you feel. Like, trust your family member, trust your friend, trust in the relationship that you've had with them, and let them know in as kind and respectful way as possible, hey, this is how I feel about it. This is what's really hurtful for me. I have these doubts. I wonder if you think those same things about me. I want you to know how hurtful it is. It's really hard for me to understand how you could say that you love me and you continue to attend, or, whatever. And just see what the other person says. This might be one of those times where, if you've opened the door and asked the questions with curiosity, you might find your family member say something like, yeah, I actually really hate that policy. I really disagree with that doctrine. I have these other reasons that I continue to believe, but I'm with you 100%. Or maybe this is how I'm trying to change it from the inside, or whatever, right? I'm not saying that you for sure will have that because your family might not think that way, but those are the types of conversations where some of that might come out. And no matter what you do, I would say make sure that you find support, find other people who get it and can be the place that you go to, the kind of place that you can go and fall apart if these things don't go well. If you have that conversation and your family or friends are like, yeah, well, or sorry, I'm not going to change, or I believe the church and think you should change, or, whatever that thing is. Like, if you're going to take that on and try to have some of those conversations, make sure that you have some backup support in case it doesn't go well, because it could be really painful.
Yeah, like you're also allowed to set your own boundaries of, I don't want, like, if you talk about these things, then I'm just not going to be in the room. Like, that's allowed. We have an RfRx video about boundaries, which I feel like it could be quite beneficial for that. And that was the last question. So do you have anything else to say about the topic, or any last words before we close?
No, thank you so much for having me again. I really enjoy the opportunity to come and interact with the group and think about some of the stuff that lives in my head and that I see with my clients, one-on-one or one couple at a time or something, but don't often have an avenue where I get to talk to a bunch of people about these things. And so, just thanks. I appreciate being here.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Yes, sorry, Eric.
Yeah. We've got a hangout session, as you know, afterwards. Are you going to be able to stick around for a few minutes, kind of just hang out for just a little bit?
Yeah, I can hang around for 10 or 15 minutes after we stop recording. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Rebecca.
Of course.
All right. Amaia, we've got another one coming up next week, right? You've been scheduling the heck out of these things. We're well into 2021 now with stuff in the books. But more importantly, what's coming up next week?
Well, next week we're going to have Daniela Sousa, who a lot of you may have known. Yes.
Oh, she's great. I love it.
Yeah, she's a philosophical coach, and she's going to talk about how to get morality without religion, which I think links beautifully with this session, because obviously Rebecca has been speaking about finding your own values, and this is something that comes up so many times. Like, I feel like when you speak to religious people, a lot of them ask, like, how can you get your morals, your values without religion? And Daniel is gonna come next week to tell us how to do it. So I really look forward to that. I've listened to so many talks and debates about this, and it's one of my favorite atheist/religious topics. So definitely join us next week, because I feel like it's going to be absolutely amazing. We have had Danielle before, and she's great. We had a session about hope with her, and another one that I can't remember. But yeah, we had 2 sessions with her, and we keep bringing her back. She's amazing. So yeah, next week, that's what's going to happen. And again, just as a reminder, if you want to watch any of our previous RfRx sessions, you can find them in our YouTube channel, youtube.com/recovering from religion. And if you want to send us any feedback, any questions, any topics, anything at all, we have an email address that is specifically for that, and that is rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. So again, feel free to please just email us with any questions that you may have, or just anything that you want to tell us. And now, I just want to again remind everyone that we also have a blog and a podcast that you can go to if you feel like that could benefit you. And now we're going to pull up the poll number 2, which is like the goodbye poll, with a few questions about this specific session and your overall thoughts about RfRx. So Eric, do you want to just show that poll to the world, please?
Done and done. And then while that poll is going, we definitely want to hear from our president and founder, Dr. Darrel Ray, because I am sure in that beady little head of his, he's got a ton of things that's been rattling around and really wants to talk about them. So, Dr. Ray.
I hate to interrupt, but just before Dr. Darrel Ray starts, we need to read the poll questions for those people who are not watching the session, but rather listening to it. Sorry, that was really rude, but I had to. I had to do it.
Go for it.
Yeah. Eric,
you want me to read them?
Do you wanna tell them, because I don't have the questions in front of me right now. So yeah.
These questions are on a scale from 1 to 5, like 1 being not really relevant or not so much, and then 5 being very much so. So the first question is, this program is relevant to me. The second question, the speaker was clear and understandable. The third question is, I will definitely attend future programs like this. And then the fourth question is, hey, how'd you find out about us? We're always interested in knowing where people are hearing about RfRx and RfR specifically. So again, like I said at the beginning, these are all anonymous, so we're not going to know how you answer them at all. Now, Amaia, is it Dr. Ray's turn?
Yes. Now you can.
Fantastic.
Dr.
I
Ray,
love it.
please.
Well, thanks again, Rebecca, for coming on. This is, I've always loved you. When you said you were, this is when early on we were talking before, and this is all coming out of your head. I knew we were in for a good one. Because, you know, there's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of books out there, Rebecca, as you well know, but clinical experience is, you just don't get that in a book. You have to have people in front of you. And I could hear that clinical experience coming through all over the place. But one of the last things you said, I wanted to underline in my own, you said, tell your friend how you feel. So if you're a gay person and you want to tell your Mormon friend or your Mormon relative, it really hurts me that you support this church or whatever. I think there's merit in doing that kindly and respectfully, but doing it, because I can see from our side of the fence and recovering from religion, we have so many people come in and saying, I left the church last year because I was getting tired of them treating my gay friends badly, or, you know, or some other demographic badly, or the racism I saw in my church, or that Black Lives Matter they don't even talk about it and don't want to admit that there's racism in our. So we know that people telling other people about how they're hurt by the church, if they do it in the proper way and doesn't create defensiveness, it puts a crack in that door. That person says, well, you know, I don't agree with that part of the Mormon church, or I don't agree with that part of the Baptist church. And just admitting that, they're saying there's a piece of that church that I have to disown. Maybe there's other pieces I need to consider. And all you're doing is asking a question. And all you're doing is giving your personal experience, which nobody can question. It's very unlikely they're going to say, well, you're crazy because they love the gays in the Mormon church. Very unlikely they're going to say that. Or, you know, or the Baptist church is not racist, even though it was founded on slavery and stuff like that. So anyway, I thought that was a nice piece of advice among the many other pieces of advice you gave. I think my understanding of what you said here was live intentionally. Don't live reactively. According to the values you develop yourself, church gave you a bunch of values. You're shedding those values. Now you got to find your own values. And I call that affirmative living, because you're affirming your own values. You're not denying or responding or rejecting other people's values. So anyway, I loved it. Thank you so much. Great talk. So for those of you who are new here, thanks for coming. I hope you'll join us again every week. I'm just blown away by what Amaia, Eric, and Madeline are putting together here. And we've been doing this, golly, Eric, how long? It's been like 7
Beginning
months.
of April. This summer thing turned out to be.
It's crazy. I thought, okay, we'll do this for a few months or weeks and months until we get through this COVID thing. Well,
I'm thinking like there can't possibly be enough topics to fill anything more than the summer, and Amaia has proven me wrong.
Yep.
Everything until March is booked, so prepare yourselves.
March? Are you kidding me? March?
Yeah.
We're going to hit a year with this thing?
Excellent.
That's the plan, yeah. It's not the whole month of March is not fully booked yet. We have like 2 weeks of March, but I definitely want to book all of it by the end of November. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a year. At least.
Well, I do want to say, if you want to help RfR, we're always looking for people to help us volunteer. There's many different ways you can volunteer and help us, and it's a very rewarding experience. I personally think recovery from religion is a way to express your own values affirmatively, because you're helping other people as they determine their values. What more valuable experience can you bring to this world than helping somebody else determine? Now, you may not be doing it at the level of Rebecca, you know, as a professional, but we will train you. We will help you get excellent listening skills. And just today, I was watching a couple chats on our chat line. At the end of the chat, I said, damn, that person is a different different person because they talked to one of our chat line agents. You can just see the chat develop. You can see our chat line agents asking questions very politely in ways that help those people think through their personal dilemmas and then leave a different person. And we see them come back sometimes, months, years later, and say, wow, that chat really changed my life. So you don't have to be a therapist to change somebody's life. You can be an RfR volunteer. And we've got a lot of different volunteer ways. You can be a support group volunteer with Eric. You can help people like Amaia create content. You can write for our blog. There's all sorts of ways to help us. And of course, last and not least by a long shot is you can donate. And we love people who want to donate every month. Give us a little bit, a few bucks every month. Helps us do exactly what we're doing right now. So thanks everybody for coming tonight. I hope you'll stick around, have time to talk to Rebecca a little bit, and then just chat with each other.